Today's Thanksgiving morning, 2023. My name's Sophia Lee, and I have a new book to read. It's called A Turkey for Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving morning. Mr. Moose helped Mrs. Moose set the Thanksgiving table. Sheep will sit here. He likes a chair that's straight up and down. Mr. Moose said, Rabbit here, Porcupine here, Mr. and Mrs. Goat here. He smiled at his wife. Isn't it nice to have friends to share Thanksgiving? This is probably Sheep's chair. Let me see. Maybe Rabbit's sitting here. I'm not really sure because they didn't specifically say which one Rabbit was sitting here, or Porcupine, or Mr. and Mrs. Goat. Mrs. Moose set 2 paper pilgrims, one at each end of the table. She placed the paper turkey with its great phantom tail between the candles. Stood back. They look good, my dear, Mr. Moose said. Mrs. Moose sighed. Yes, but I wish we had a real turkey. Everyone always has a turkey for Thanksgiving. Everyone but us. Mr. Moose nuzzled Mrs. Moose's head. Well, that won't do. I will go this minute and find you a turkey for Thanksgiving. She looks kind of concerned because she's the only family that doesn't have a turkey for Thanksgiving. Mr. Moose put on his cap and went out. Mist wandered through the bare trees. The cold made his nose water. Rabbit poked his head from his rabbit hole. Mr. Moose, is it dinner time? Not quite yet. Mrs. Moose wants a turkey. I'm off to find one. Rabbit joined in 3 quick hops. I'll come too. So here's Rabbit's burrow. Looks like he's wiping his nose on his sleeve. Okay. Moose's warm breath hung white in front of him. Snow crunched under his hooves and made little holes that Rabbit jumped over. I see the goats, Rabbit said. Mr. Goat raised his head and spat out the tin can he was chewing. Is it dinner time, he said. Not till we find a turkey, Mr. Moose said. We saw one down by the river, Mrs. Goat told him, and Mr. Goat added, a fat one. The goat's mailbox is right here, and it looks like that's Mrs. Goat because she's pointing. The goats leaped down from their perch. We'll show you. Sheep was farther up the hillside, looking round at the fur ball in his winter coat. Is it dinner time? He bellowed. First, I have to find a turkey, Mr. Moose bellowed back. There's a turkey nest on the riverbank, Sheep called. Wait for me. The smell of ice and moss as they crunched along. Above them a crow hung, black as a puff of wood smoke. Porcupine was hiding in the underbrush. It's you, he said, and put his quills down. We're off to find a turkey for Mrs. Moose, Mr. Moose explained. You want to come? I'm slow, Porcupine said. Pick me up on your way back. Who'd want to pick you up? Sheep said and laughed his bleat of laugh. I'll wait, Porcupine told Mr. Moose. There's Porcupine. He's kind of camouflaged in the tall grass. They saw Turkey's nest right away, and Turkey himself peering over the top of it. Turkey, Turkey! Mr. Moose called in his sweetest voice. Ah! Turkey blurred from his nest and ran. Mr. Moose lumbered after him. Turkey, don't run! We just want you for Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey ran faster. No turkey here. He's trying to make sure that nobody thinks it's here by putting up signs. Like, do not disturb. Come back after Thanksgiving. No turkey here. Mr. Moose saw the red and blue sheen of Turkey's neck. Turkey's tail brushed crumbs of snow behind him as he tried to fly. Too fat, Mr. Goat said. Turkey's legs bent in the middle as he fell. Mr. Moose put a footed hoof on his head and smiled his great toothy smile. I hope you don't have other plans for Thanksgiving, Turkey. There's his big blue boot on the turkey's head. And there's that little blue on the turkey's red head. He helped Turkey up. My wife won't mind that you're too fat, he said. Let's go. It's getting close to dinner time. They marched Turkey in front. I'm sorry about this, he said, for I can see you don't want to come, Mr. Moose said, but I must insist. A promise is a promise. So, like, he's pushing it, and he's making, like, a pile of snow where it's in front of his feet, because he's not picking up his feet, because he doesn't want to go. There was a wreath of dried fruit on the moose's door. Inside the house was filled with Thanksgiving smells. Mr. Moose hid Turkey behind him. Look who I brought, Mrs. Moose, he said. Sheep, the goats, rabbit, and porcupine. And ta-da! He pushed Turkey around in the front of him. For you, a turkey for Thanksgiving. Here, he's hiding. He's right here behind Mr. Moose, and she's all smiley because everybody's here. Okay. Mrs. Moose clapped her hooves. I'm so happy to have you, Turkey. Thank you, Mr. Moose. Now everything's perfect. Shall we sit? Sheep asked, heading for the straight up and down chair. Let's. Mrs. Moose pointed. Rabbit here, porcupine here, Mr. and Mrs. Goat here, and look, I brought a chair from the other room in hopes of Turkey. A chair? Turkey stammered. Right next to me, Mrs. Moose said. Light the candles, Mr. Moose. There, he's like, what? I thought you were good. He's like, what? And, the candles are around the turkey right here. Since there were bowls of acorns and alpha sprouts dried since summer. There was willow bark and curd grasses and wild parsley that were pressed leaves, thin and pale as new ice on a pond. I hope you find something you are to your liking, Mr. Turkey, Mrs. Moose said. I wasn't sure of your tastes. You are so kind to worry about my taste, Turkey said. I thought you'd be worried about how I taste. Like, he was like, I thought you were going to eat me. That's probably why he didn't want to go. Heavens no! Mr. Moose smiled in his big toothy smile and filled everyone's cup with cold spring water. It's so nice to have friends around the table at Thanksgiving. Turkey's waddles wobbled. It's even nicer to be at your table and not on it. He said, Happy Thanksgiving, everybody! And there he is, all smiling, and Mr. Moose is all smiling, and they're just stuffing their mouths. Happy Thanksgiving, Turkey. He looks like he's having a good time now. Happy Thanksgiving!